you're talking about Clappin Cheeks, you cannot overlook this man. He's an expert at generating controversy from all the way back in the day when he smoked a joint on the Joe Rogan podcast, and all the trouble that he got in for with Tesla shareholders and others, federal government with his SpaceX flight contracts. Um, he doesn't really give a shit. He spent $40 billion to buy Shitter, um, which has turned into X. And I think he's a force pushing back against censorship, social repercussions for speaking your mind, and having an opinion that doesn't align with the groupthink hive mind bullshit toxic agenda. And I shouldn't even use that word because that word has been so bastardized by those that are part of this woke movement. You know, throwing it at masculinity, throwing it at a whole bunch of things. And reality is, it's toxic humanity. There's a lot of human nature out there that is by nature toxic. And you have to be mindful and intentional to resist your instinctual behavior, which is selfishness and greed and lust. All this stuff, even if you don't believe in the Bible or any of the stories in it, the description of human nature inside that book was something that unified human beings and gave us common ground with which to discuss ourselves and the world. Without that framework, you can clearly see that everything is up for debate, and therefore everything becomes an argument. As personal truths become more important than universal truths, the elites laugh their way to the bank, while you lose your power and your money while fighting with other people instead of being productive and creating a better country together. That's enough for me. Let's let the richest man in the world that we know of take it from here.
Well, who's to say that something is misinformation? Who's the arbiter of that? Is it the BBC?
Why did you agree to do this interview with the BBC?
I don't know. I like spontaneity, and I don't know. There's a lot going on, and it seems like I actually do have a lot of respect for the BBC. Although sometimes I forget what the BBC stands for, But what does it stand? Just kidding.
You know what it stands for.
Yes, I do. So there's a lot going on. So I thought this might be a good opportunity to answer some questions and, I guess maybe get some feedback too. What should we be doing different? I know the BBC, for example, is not thrilled about being labelled state-affiliated media.
Not exactly. I mean, I was going to get to that later, but let's go for it now. It's officially objected to that term. Do you want to respond to it?
Yeah. So our goal is simply to have, to be as truthful and accurate as possible. So I think we're adjusting the label to be publicly funded, which I think is perhaps not too objectionable. We're trying to be accurate.
I'm not the BBC, but publicly funded is how the BBC describes it.
Okay. So that would be accurate
itself.
If we use the same words that the BBC uses to describe itself,
right,
that presumably would be okay. I'm not asking you for a yes or no since you're not running the BBC per se. But it seems to pass a reasonable
So you're
test.
going to change those labels on the BBC Twitter feed and also NPRs as well?
Yeah.
Right.
Publicly funded. Basically, that's we're trying to be as accurate as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fine. First of all, I just want to clear something up. Are you sleeping in the office? Here,
I sometimes sleep in the office,
like
in the library.
5 days a week,
No, no.
3 days a week.
I'm not here 5 days a week. But there's a library that nobody goes to on the 7th floor, and there's a couch there, and I sleep there sometimes.
Okay. Okay. In terms of the general overview, the reason why I think you've agreed to do this is because you wanted to talk about the first 6 months as chief executive owner of Twitter.
Yeah, it's kind of like whatever you want to talk about,
Right. So, how do you think it's gone?
Well, it's not been boring. It's been quite a roller coaster. I mean, things are going, I think, reasonably well. I mean, we've seen some all-time highs in terms of total user time. So we passed 8 billion user minutes per day, which is a lot of user minutes. So usage is up, growth is good. The site works mostly. We have a few glitches here and there, but the site is working fairly well. And we're doing it with a small fraction of the original, headcount. So,
I mean, you mentioned outages there. There have been several.
Yeah.
And we've actually spoken to an engineer who works at Twitter, and they said that the plumbing is broken here, and it's on fire, and there could be problems at any minute. Do you accept that?
I mean, there have been a few outages, but not for very long, and it's currently working fine.
So you don't. It doesn't keep you up at night that Twitter might go offline again.
At this point, I think we've got a pretty good handle on what makes Twitter work. And we're also doing it with 2 data centers instead of 3. So we used to have 3 data centers. We shut down one of them. So we were actually roughly two-thirds of the prior compute capability. But we've made so many improvements to the core algorithm. In some cases, we improved the core algorithm by 80%. So the actual CPU usage or computer usage is dramatically less. But the results speak for themselves. The system, despite being at all-time highs of usage, is fast. It's responsive. It's more responsive than it was before the takeover. And we've also added long-form tweets. We've added, you can now post videos up to 2 hours, and soon videos of any length. We're rolling out our subscriber programs so people can, content creators can actually make a living on Twitter by having some of their content behind a paywall. We open source the algorithm, so there's transparency about what tweets get shown, what content gets shown versus not. I think you said.
What I really enjoy about him is when you truly are innovative, you truly have new ideas and concepts. You are less concerned with protecting your IP or your intellectual property because you know that you have more. There's a scarcity. A lot of people are ripping other people off and using existing things, someone else's idea, and then they go turn it into something and want to hang on to that because they got nothing else. But when you have so many ideas, I mean, he talks about his brain is constantly going and going and going. His mind is exploding with ideas to the point where it can be problematic. So it makes a lot of sense why someone like that is not overly concerned with, oh, we can't do this open source. We can't share this with the world. There's no shortage of stuff behind this. Let's share this with the world. If it takes off for me, great. If someone else can go do something even better with it, even better. If more people had that attitude within the capitalist system, because I think the people get confused and think that, oh, if we went to the communist system, it wouldn't be competitive and capitalist, and everybody's at odds with each other trying to, compete. Communism and socialism is supposed to be more cooperative. The government shouldn't force you to be cooperative, and as soon as it does, cooperation means nothing. It's forced cooperation. So people that voluntarily cooperate in a competitive situation and understand that the more people that you have on your team, the more value you bring to your table, are people that are willing to open up to the world and work with other people and aren't selfish and closed off and scared.
Like, what are you really going to trust? Are you going to trust some sort of black box algorithm from some other site, or are you going to trust the thing that you can actually see and understand?
Yeah, but do you accept that there are lots of engineers that are looking at the way that Twitter is built and the lack of engineers, because so many have left, and are worried about the health of Twitter?
Well, I mean, there've been many of these people have predicted that Twitter will cease to function. Their predictions have not turned out to be true. You know, insert Mark Twain, saying, rumors about death are greatly exaggerated.
Well, it's also interesting. Elon is an outside-the-box thinker. He encourages people who work for him, because he embodies this, to not just do things mindlessly. In fact, I've seen memos from him where he's like, if you know something is wrong, do not comply. Reach out to someone and let them know that you see an error here. Not all people and companies are like that. Some just want obedience. So if you bring a different mentality into a stagnant company that's bloated and has a lot of things in place that are not working well, and you say, we're going to throw this system out, we're going to get light, we're going to start moving, all this stuff is bogging us down, we're unprofitable, we're going to be dead in 3 months, or whatever it was, we're going to triage, and triage is deciding who lives and dies in a hospital setting. Triage nurses say, I've got 10 injured patients, I can only attend to one. Which one of these patients, there's a balance of needs my help, because if there's a guy who's definitely going to survive and a guy who's definitely going to die, which one of these patients needs my help and has a chance of survival? Who do I need to help first, and who can wait? And triage inside Twitter would be the whole company's going to die if we do not sacrifice some of the dead weight. We can't bring everybody and all these programs forward with us if we want to be profitable. And the system itself is obviously not working, prone to bots, very inflexible, a lot of requirements on what you can, this many number of characters and all this stuff. I mean, it was a great, simple concept to roll out, but if it is truly going to be a competitor in the social media space and be the one platform that is offering unrestricted, uncensored, unless you're talking about violence or true hate speech, Twitter's it. And I think with some course corrections, I think that anybody who's betting against X, formerly known as Shitter, is gonna regret it.
Let's go back 6 months.
I mean, we're literally on Twitter right now.
Right.
So it must work.
Let's go back 6 months and even further back than that. When you put that initial bid in, you then had a wobble. You kind of said, I actually don't want to buy Twitter anymore.
I mean, it really is quite entertaining. I mean, it's like soap opera because when I first made the offer, the response was the board adopted a poison pill. So they were like, hell no, you can't buy Twitter. We'd rather die. We'd like chew on cyanide before being bought. That was their initial response.
And then you said, actually, I don't want to buy it.
Yes,
So
and then they said, no, you must buy us. Gun to the head, you have to buy us. I'm like, are you the same people who said you'd rather die than be bored? Doesn't that seem odd?
So I guess my question to you is, in terms of, you said that the reason was because of bots, because Twitter was filled with bots.
Well,
looking back at it now, was there a little bit of you that thought, actually, maybe I've overpaid. Actually, maybe I don't want to do this. I want to get out of this. Be honest.
Yeah, no. The problem was that the publicly stated user numbers were in excess of the real user numbers. So
I've heard you talk about that.
Yes,
You
yes.
talk about that.
Yeah,
Isn't that bizarre that they seem more concerned with going against what Elon wants to do than actually being like thoughtful and having a clear design for what they want or what they think is best for the company. When Elon's saying I'm gonna buy it, they're like, over our dead body, we'll do whatever it takes to stop this. This is outrageous. And then when he decides that the the product was not as advertised and it's rotten and full of bots and needs a lot of work, suddenly now they're going to sue him, and all this is already done, I believe, but it's just interesting how fixated human beings can become on not what's best for them, but just trying to screw other people over, and that's one of those things that I was saying, that you have to be mindful and recognize that you have this inside you. Because the only way to make a change and stop doing behaviors that you don't like is to at least be self-aware enough to understand what you're doing. And I think a ton of people are just, they're too busy or too clueless or just apathetic, don't give a shit. I'm not sure what the reason for it is, but I've seen this manifested in small towns. I grew up in a small town. People are just worried about gossiping and making sure you're not doing better than they are, versus just focusing on themselves and saying, man, if I stop wasting 10 hours a week worrying about what other people are doing, that's 10 hours a week that I can move my life forward. And boy, that makes a lot of sense to me, but doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to certain people.
yes.
Basically, looking back at it now, was that the only reason that you wanted to pull out?
Yes. That was literally the issue. It's like let's say you buy a warehouse full of goods, and you're told that less than 5% of the goods in the warehouse are broken. But then you actually get the warehouse. You look into the warehouse, and it turns out actually 25% of the things are broken. You feel like, that's not what you said.
So then you changed your mind again and decided to buy it. Did you do that?
I kind of had to.
Right. Did you do that because
Legally.
you thought that a court would make you do that?
Yes. That is the reason.
Right. So you were still trying to get out of it, and then you just were advised by lawyers, look,
We're gonna
have to buy this.
Yes.
Interesting. So you.
Yeah.
So you didn't actually want to purchase it, even when you said you were going.
Well, not at that price.
You were going to, really.
No, I mean, like let's say, I think the analogy is pretty close. Like, let's say, it's like there's a warehouse full of goods. They say the warehouse, less than 5% of what's in the warehouse is broken. And then you walk into the warehouse and say, actually, it's 25%. So you might still want to buy what's in that warehouse, but probably at a lower price. Not buying the stuff that's broken.
So you didn't have an epiphany. You just thought, I'm gonna have to buy this. I might as well.
I kind of wonder if before the investigation, the due diligence that was done as part of the business acquisition, because when you're in the market for buying a business, you generally investigate the operation of said business. And so I wonder if Twitter even fully knew how many bots were in their system, or maybe they just didn't care until it was time to sell, and then they realized that if this information came out, their company value would be cut in half. So they were desperate for that contract to be executed and make their money, and also probably just to screw him. They were pissed that he did it and he was able to get to the point he got to, and then when he realized that things weren't adding up and wanted to get out, they're like, oh no, you're going to buy it now. You have come too far.
Buy the bullet.
Yeah.
So then you walk
It's not
in.
super complicated.
Right. I'm not sure you've said that before.
Oh, fair enough.
So then you came into
Cue
Twitter.
a whole bunch of court cases. You said this in the BBC interview, etc.
So you then came into Twitter with a sync. What were your first impressions?
Well,
I believe that I've seen a shift in Elon. He used to be much more serious, and now he takes time to laugh and make light of most situations. And I think that that's wisdom that comes with age. You start to realize that taking things too seriously is not good for anybody. And the more you can laugh, I think the more you're going to enjoy your life. So I try not to get too serious about things, even things that seem very important and very serious topics. I think if you can still take them seriously and discuss them, but add humor into a serious discussion, I think that your quality of life is going to skyrocket.
I thought, wow, this is a really nice office building. And
Expensive.
yes, a very expensive office building. Great decor. It's a lovely place. And I mean, and definitely spending money like it's going out of fashion, which it isn't quite going out of fashion yet. So, no, I mean, the gravity of the situation is perhaps not well understood. At the point at which the company, the transaction closed, Twitter was tracking to lose over $3 billion a year. And had $1 billion in the bank. So that's 4 months to death. So this is your starting position. How would you feel? Pretty intense, you know.
You also had to borrow quite a lot of money and pay interest on that too.
Well, that's why part of why it was the $3 billion run rate. So, in rough numbers, a normal year, Twitter would do, let's say, $4.5 billion in revenue, $4.5 billion in cost. I mean, it was really kind of like a non-profit. I mean, they'd run it at roughly break even. Now,
But that's not bankruptcy. You're not saving that
No.
company from bankruptcy.
No,
It's breaking even.
But then the issue is that if you then add $1.5 billion in debt servicing and have a massive drop in revenue, which we did, which was partly cyclic and partly political concerns and whatever. So revenue, quote, dropped by over a third. It's not, and this is not just Twitter. Facebook and Google have also seen some significant advertising revenue declines. It was a little.
Because he is a loose cannon, in spite of all the issues that were pre-existing within the company, and then the negative press, and the concerns about how he was going to run things, and the fear-mongering from the left. Oh my God, what's going to happen without our fact checkers and our content filters? Like, how are people going to be able to cope with actual information that hasn't been gate-kept by someone else? And how would people possibly figure anything out if they're not told by someone else what's true and false? If the people that are gatekeeping the truth are corrupt, then the most dangerous thing is not to have free access to information. The most dangerous thing is censorship and all this. I made a joke video about flat Earth and posted it. If flat Earth was in the title, it was physicists having a discussion, and just putting flat Earth in the title, even though the content was sarcastic, I got a banner on the video explaining to people that the Earth wasn't flat, and just warning, we need to warn you, you don't have a brain. They just think that we're so fucking stupid that we can't suss out truth, misinformation, and they think that we're that stupid, and then they actively try to exploit it by feeding us bullshit and hoping that we believe it. And that doesn't, you would think that the fact that doesn't work as well as they would like would let them know that we're not as fucking dumb as they think that we are.
It's been a little higher at Twitter, but most of the advertisers are coming back. So I think we'll be back where there's a cyclic demand drop, which is still pretty significant. but in rough numbers, revenue dropped from 4.5 billion to 3, and expenses went from 4.5 to 6, creating a $3 billion negative cash flow situation, and Twitter having $1 billion in the bank. That's 4 months to live. So unless drastic action was taken immediately, this company's going to die and be owned by banks.
Let's talk about that drastic action, because almost immediately you sacked a lot of Twitter workers.
Yeah.
And I spoke to them. It was very easy to speak to them when it happened. And the way they said,
He said
pretty much
sack.
everyone said, is that it felt quite haphazard.
It was.
And it felt a little bit uncaring.
I wouldn't say uncaring. The issue.
Oh, capitalism is uncaring. Yeah, if you are, as the British would say, if you are made redundant, mate, then it's just bad luck. You know what I'm saying?
The issue is like the company's either going to go bankrupt, or if we do not cut costs immediately. This is not a caring, uncaring situation. It's like if the whole ship sinks, then nobody's got a job.
Right.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just lost their jobs like that. They weren't. They didn't even know they'd lost their jobs often. They just were just
so let
frozen
me
out
ask
of
you,
their accounts.
what would you do?
Well, you might want to give someone some notice. I mean, you might. By the way, I'm not running Twitter, but
I know, but
this is the criticism, and this is what
I
staff
understand,
members say. A little bit of notice,
No, I understand. You have 4 months to live. 120 days. In 120 days, you're dead. So what do you want to do?
How much are you worth?
I don't know.
But I mean, we're talking about around the $200 billion mark. I mean, it's not quite. You're framing it in a way that that it had a.
This part makes my skin crawl. He's like, could have given him notice. I mean, they paid him like 3 months severance. They'd been there forever, getting bloated wages, huge amounts of money, free dinner, office building, all kinds of perks. I bet their health insurance included like flights to the moon. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? But it was like they didn't want to make money. It was like Twitter was like it was being run as a charity. It's like, hey, let's hire as many people as we possibly can and pay as much of the company revenue out to people that don't really do that much. Let's hire 5 people for a job that really only requires 1, just because there's, we want to let everybody in the whole world work at Twitter. Then you got no users, like, what does he expect that someone who takes over a bloated company is trying to turn things around because this thing is sinking? What are your options? You just let the whole company die? Then no one has a job and no one has a place to post their thoughts without being censored. That's the most important, is to preserve our ability to communicate, our ability to have dialogue, our ability to use our speech to communicate with other people, and not have a third party in the middle arbitrating what words are approved and what words are not. I don't want to live in a world like that. And if you do, then you should have been born in the Dark Ages, because you would have loved it. The king would have told you exactly what you can and can't say, and it would have been utopia for you.
A few months to live. You're quite a rich man.
Quite a rich man.
I sold a lot of Tesla stock to close this deal. I did not want to sell the Tesla stock.
Okay. Do you have any regrets on the way that some of the staff were let go?
I mean, people were given 3 months of severance, some cases more. So.
So I regret
like I said,
giving
the companies need to run.
Whiny motherfuckers more than they deserve. I mean, 3 months, that's really nice, but it's like being criticized for being nice, like you're not nice enough. The last time I offered a homeless person any money, I was in New York City. Someone asked me for if I had any money. I said sure, and I pulled out $5. Well, when I opened my wallet, they saw that I had a 20 in there, and they said, "Oh man, could I get that 20?" And I put the $5 bill back in my wallet. Like, put my wallet back in my pocket, and I said, that's what you get for being greedy. I was about to give you $5 for nothing, and you asked for more. No. You're asking for me to donate to you for doing nothing out of the kindness of my heart, and then instead of being grateful, you throw my generosity in my face and say it's not enough before you even get the money. Pretty stupid move.
Run on their own cognizance, and it's not so easy for me to sell stock as people might think. I have to sell stock during certain periods. I can't sell stock during other periods. So there are only brief windows where I can sell Tesla stock, and then this is often taken as some lack of faith in Tesla. And in fact, the Tesla stock sales caused the Tesla stock to plummet, which is not good.
Do you think those two were connected?
Well, the people couldn't parse the difference between I'm selling Tesla stock because I've lost faith in Tesla, which I haven't, or that it's desperately needed for Twitter.
Okay, and then after that, after you let go of a lot of stuff, obviously Twitter became slimmed down a lot, and then you started making some more policy decisions. One of those policy decisions was to bring Donald Trump back. He hasn't actually tweeted yet.
Right.
Do you expect him to come back at any point? Like, have you spoken to him?
So you can't see anything on the New York Times site unless you pay, and I'm not paying for that dumpster fire. But this you can kind of see the article, the headline here. What do we call Twitter now anyway? The bewilderment stems from Mr. Musk's move last month to rebrand Twitter, which he owns as X. No major social media app has undergone such a, I'm assuming, change in name and brand. What do they have? Short-term memory loss? Like, we just went from Facebook to Meta. I mean, hello, what? These are the people that are. These are your journalists. These are the top of the line, and this is why they're so desperate, because amateurs can easily do peer level stuff, if not better. I mean, the advantage that they used to have was networking and connections and information. Well, now the internet, for now, has democratized that until they figure out a way to restrict it again. Used to be, information was kept at the university and the library, so you had to go there to get it. Now, it's freely available everywhere, and it has changed, and they still want to charge huge fortunes to get an education. That information is freely available. They can only charge for the piece of paper that says, oh yeah, you got your information from us, and we gave you a thumbs up. Here you go. Thanks for the 200 grand. See you later.
I haven't spoken to him. I don't know. He may or may not come back. But the point is that Twitter should be a town square that gives equal voice to the whole country and ideally the whole world. It should not be a partisan politics, and the more of a partisan politics that are on the very far left of the spectrum. San Francisco, Berkeley politics normally is quite niche, but if Twitter effectively acted as a megaphone for very niche regional politics and megaphone that to the world. So, in order for something to serve as a digital town square, it must serve all people from all political persuasions, provided it's legal.
Yes.
Close to half the country voted for Trump. I wasn't one of them. I voted for.
So we'll switch back. I don't know how familiar people are with the big players in China, but this WeChat, there's a couple apps over there that have your financials, your socials, everything rolled into one, and the government loves that because it's super easy to track you when you're all in one ecosystem. You got all your eggs in one basket. So it sounds like his goal with this, and the reason that we walked away from Twitter, and again, journalists like asking dumb questions, what's going on? Like, do a little research, make some phone calls. It's called investigative journalism, not just throwing an article out and having open-ended questions because you're too fucking lazy to do any research. So it sounds like he's getting rid of Twitter because Twitter was a very narrow lane, and he's going to turn this into a company that competes with potentially a bunch of different players. PayPal, Facebook, YouTube. I mean, he's adding video. His goal. I don't know if he's going to be able to execute it, but if anybody is capable of it, I would bet that it's him. But he's going to try to make this into a one-stop social, networking, financial, communication, maybe, pretty much all the things that we rely on every day for, and we use different applications for. He's probably going to try to roll it into one, and if he's successful, there could be a huge paradigm shift in the social media ecosystem, and you could get a lot of copycats changing their company name to Y or Z.
For Biden. But nonetheless, free speech is meaningless unless you allow people you don't like to say things you don't like. Otherwise, it's irrelevant. And if at the point at which you lose free speech, it doesn't come back.
I think the issue some people have is that a lot of people were brought back. I mean, some people were brought back who were previously banned for spreading things like QAnon conspiracies. You have people like Andrew Tate who were brought back, who were previously banned for things like hate speech. Do you think you prioritize freedom of speech over misinformation and hate speech?
Well, who's to say that something is misinformation? Who's the arbiter of that?
Yep.
Is it the BBC?
Yep.
You're literally asking me?
Yes.
Well, no, you are the arbiter on Twitter because you own Twitter.
Yes, I'm saying who is this?
The easiest way to take away someone's ability to talk is to use one of these terms. And hate speech has become a very, very broad definition. I mean, hate speech is now anything that the groups that are, controlling speech, any speech that they hate. It doesn't actually have to be hateful against anybody. If they just hate what you're saying, that's now hate speech. And it's like, delete.
To say that one person's misinformation is another person's information. At the point at which you say that there is this is misinformation, like who is going to decide
accept that
that?
misinformation can be dangerous, that it can cause real-world harms, that it can potentially cause.
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is that the BBC itself has, at times, published things
that are wrong. I mean, look at COVID. The narrative changes and it evolves. And if you've got gatekeepers that are preventing evolution and new information from coming out because they're so entrenched, they're going to die on the hill of the information as it is. Oh my God, we need communication. The easiest way to fall into tyranny is to lose the ability to have free speech. The First Amendment, Dave Chappelle says First Amendment is the First Amendment because it's the primary thing that we need. And the Second Amendment is there just in case shit doesn't quite go right.
are false. Do you agree that that has occurred?
I'm quite sure the BBC have said things before that turn out to not be true.
Correct.
In its, whatever it is, 100-year history, I'm quite sure.
Yes. Even if you aspire to be accurate, there are times when you will not be.
Right, but
I think in the grand scheme of things, the BBC does aspire to be accurate.
But you accept there has to be a line in terms of hate speech. I mean, you're not looking at total 100% unrestricted speech.
I generally am of the opinion that if the people of a given country are against a certain type of speech, they should talk to their elected representatives and pass a law to prevent it. So, for example, you cannot advocate murdering someone. That's illegal.
So yeah, inciting violence and hate speech is already not protected. But the UK and Europe has some speech laws. The thing is we have the First Amendment. So it's very hard to make laws when you have a constitutional right to speak freely, as long as you're not harming anyone else or depriving them of life, liberty, or happiness. You have the right to speak your mind. And so the idea that the government even could pass a law to ban a certain type of speech goes directly against the foundational documents of our republic. And a republic is a nation based on a code of laws. Said code of laws would be the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and maybe there's some stuff in the Declaration of Independence as well. I'm not an expert on what's in each of those documents. I know that those are the three primary founding documents, though.
In the United States, everywhere really, I suspect. So there are limits to speech.
I mean, I guess taking your argument to a logical conclusion then, do you accept that there's more misinformation on the platform if it's not being policed in the same way?
I actually think there's less these days because we've eliminated so many of the bots which were pushing scams and spam. And previous management turned a blind eye to the bots because their bonuses were tied to user growth. And if your compensation is tied to user growth, well, you're not going to look too closely at some of the users. That's part of the problem. So I think we've got less misinformation because we don't have the bot problem that we used to do. And we also have given a lot of attention to community notes, which corrects, with community itself, corrects misinformation. It's been very effective.
I mean, I would only just add that we have spoken to people who have been sacked that used to be in content moderation, and we've spoken to people
content moderation,
and they just say there's not enough people to police.
I hate the police in real world, and I hate the fact that there's content police on the internet. People are such fucking babies. I need my daddy. I can't be on the internet unsupervised. Where's my content police? Hello, police? Can you come respond? Someone said some stuff that I don't really like. Is there some way you could take this down? Because it's really bothering me, and I can't just click away from it. I'm looking at it, and it's like really bothering me.
This stuff, particularly around hate speech in the company. Is that
what hate speech are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Here we go.
Twitter.
Right.
Do you see a rise in hate speech?
But
just a personal.
They love to say hate speech, but when asked to define or identify or give examples, they've got nothing. Same thing with Trump. Listen, I'm not a Trump lover, but the fact is that when you ask people what they hate about Trump, they always go back to the locker room talk. I could show you a video where he apologizes and says he regrets doing that. And if you're the type of person that cannot forgive or accept that people can grow and become better, and you don't believe that, then you're the reason that convicts come out of jail after serving their time and are not forgiven, are not allowed to get a job, even though they've served their time and paid their penance to society. They've given their pound of flesh. They're still not forgiven. They're still treated as if they never did anything to make up for what they did. And the reason they wind up back in the system is because they have no way out. People will never forgive them. So the Bible says forgive. And again, even if you don't care about God, learning to forgive yourself is critical to your own happiness and mental well-being. And learning to forgive others is also critical to your mental health and well-being, because hate will poison the vessel that holds it. So if you have hate toward other people, they're walking around just as happy as a clam. They got no idea how much you hate them. It's not affecting them. The only person that your hatred for that individual is affecting is yourself. And the sooner that you can stop carrying that backpack full of hate around and just set the fucking thing down and walk away, the better your goddamn life is going to be.
Well, anecdote, like what do you? I don't.
Personally, for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content, yeah, personally. But I'm not going to talk to the rest of for the rest of Twitter.
You see more hate speech personally.
I would say I would see more hateful content.
Interesting.
Content you don't like or hateful. What do you mean to describe a hateful thing?
Yeah, I mean,
bullshit.
Content that will solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
So you think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
So a person with their own ideas has a good concept of what those are because they've come up with them. A person who has no fucking clue what they're talking about, but is just regurgitating bullshit that someone else has told them that it's good to say, and they want to virtue signal and be like, I'm good too, so I'm going to say these words, because if you're good, you say these words, then has no fucking clue what to say when asked to give examples or explain their position, because it's not their position. They don't have a position.
No,
Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm saying.
Well, I'm just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content, and I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, you've asked me whether my feed, whether it's got less or more. I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for examples.
Right.
Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I
You
don't.
can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore. Because I just don't particularly like it.
But you
and
said
actually, a lot of people are quite similar. I only look at
hang on a second.
my
You said you've seen
following.
more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And
Well, then how did you see that hateful content?
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen for you hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
Then I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet. And yet
First you backpedal, then you become indignant.
you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
That's false.
no. What I
You
claimed,
just lied.
Next, you apologize because you have no other options, and your brain is just spinning around like a top.
No. What I claimed was there are many organisations that say that that kind of information is on the rise. Now, whether it has on my
Give me
feed
one
or
example.
not. I mean, right, and
Literally
if you
can't
look at
name
something
one.
like the Strategic Dialogue Institute in the UK, they will say that. So
Look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a
Right.
single example, and you can't name one.
right, and as I already said, I don't use that feed. But
Well, then how would you know that?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content.
Redirect.
And you couldn't name a single example.
Right.
Redirect.
And as I said,
That's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how
say,
would you
for a
know this
few
hateful
weeks.
content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks ago. I can't give you an exact example. Let's move on.
Oh, logic is such a dangerous weapon. We need to ban it. We need to ban facts, empirical facts, and logic, because that fucks up personal truths and personal facts. Well, this is how I feel. That's not a fact, that's a feeling. Stop getting it confused.
We only have a certain amount of time.
Wow.
COVID misinformation. You
Amazing.
changed the COVID misinformation
Has
rules.
BBC changed its COVID misinformation?
The BBC does not set the rules on Twitter, so I'm asking you.
No, I'm talking about the BBC's misinformation about COVID.
I'm literally asking you about, you changed the labels, the COVID misinformation labels. There used to be a policy, it then disappeared. Why do that?
I just want to say we should all thank Putin, even though he is a dick for invading Ukraine. The one good thing that he did for the world was curing COVID, because as soon as he invaded Ukraine, it was like a month or two, and then nobody gave a shit about COVID, the vaccine, the rules, anything. It was like, oh, we got a new thing. Look, a squirrel.
Well, COVID is no longer an issue. Does the BBC hold itself at all responsible for misinformation regarding masking and side effects of vaccinations, and not reporting on that at all? And what about the fact that the BBC was put under?
So I took the vaccine, and I had cardiac issues. I did a full workup. Went to my PCP, was referred to a cardiologist. I had the EKG. I went all the way to a cardiac MRI. And they couldn't really identify what was going on, and they couldn't provide me any assistance. So it was kind of just a waiting game, and thankfully about 6 months after the second shot, I was able to resume working out. Because when I tried to work out after I got the shot, I was tasting blood in my mouth. I was running in the neighborhood of like a 20-minute 5K, and I couldn't even jog. I couldn't even do a light run, just like a rest day run, just bouncing around. I couldn't get on the exercise bike. I used to work out at work every day at lunch as part of my routine, and so I knew what difficulty I put it on. I knew my cadence, my workout duration. This was like an established routine, and as soon as I took these things, um, I almost immediately lost my aerobic threshold. Um, and I still don't know if there's long-term lasting effects from that. How would you ever know? I don't have a control Justin who didn't take the vaccine to compare myself with. So just real fun stuff, you know. Thank God that I did recover, but there was several months where I didn't know if I was ever going to go back to normal, you know, with the long COVID stuff and all that was being talked about at the time. It was like, is this my new life? Am I never going to be able to exercise ever again?
Pressure by the British government to change its editorial policy. Are you aware of that?
This is not an interview about the BBC.
Oh, you thought it wasn't?
I see now why you've done Twitter Spaces. I am not a representative of the BBC's editorial policy. I want to make that clear. Let's talk about something else. You want to talk about the BBC?
You too.
All right, let's talk about something else.
You weren't expecting that.
Let's talk about something else. Narendra Modi. The BBC did a documentary about Narendra Modi and his leadership during the riots in Gujarat. We then believe that some of that content was taken off Twitter. Was that at the behest of the Indian government?
I'm not aware of that particular situation.
So you're not sure?
I don't know. I don't know about that. You know, what exactly happened with some content situation in India. The rules in India for what can appear on social media are quite strict. And we can't go beyond the laws of a country.
But do you get that if you do that, you incentivize countries around the world to simply pass more draconian laws?
No. Look, if we have a choice of either our people go to prison or we comply with the laws, we will comply with the laws. The same goes for the BBC.
Okay. Since you became CEO, there's been another story in town.
No, I'm not CEO anymore.
Okay, you're chief twit, or what are you?
No, my dog Floki is the CEO.
Okay.
He's taken over.
I saw that.
Yes.
Okay, so TikTok has also been in the news. There's talk of perhaps the Biden administration wanting to potentially ban it or force a sale.
China.
What's your
It
view?
comes from China. You can't say
I
that.
don't really use TikTok.
But it does. It comes from China.
I mean, one of the reasons that I emphasize that that our goal here at Twitter is to maximize unregretted user minutes or unregretted user time is that I hear many people tell me they spent a lot of time on TikTok, but they regret the time spent. And that seems like, okay, well, we don't want to have regretted time. We want the time to be unregretted, where you learned things, you were entertained, amused. I mean, frankly, I get more laughs out of Twitter than anything else, and many people tell me the same thing. So that's a good sign. For TikTok itself, like I said, I just don't know enough about what's going on there. I can't say I have a strong opinion on TikTok.
So you don't have an opinion on whether it should be banned or not?
You know, I'm generally against banning things. So I would probably not be in favor. I mean, it would help Twitter, I suppose, if TikTok was banned, because then people would spend more time on Twitter and less time on TikTok. But even though that would be even if it would help Twitter, I would be generally against banning of things.
Okay. Do you feel sometimes that your many business interests might get in the way of you having opinion? I mean, for example, Tesla has major connections in China. You wouldn't have a certain opinion on something or feel uncomfortable about saying something because of your other business interests elsewhere?
Do I look uncomfortable? Actually, I do. I look uncomfortable. Yeah, I mean, Tesla's got activities around the world, and so does SpaceX. Once in a while, those things do come into conflict.
So just as a point, banning things means that you're not comfortable with their existence. And instead of being able to reconcile that as an adult, you're so scared of it and it threatens you so deeply that you can't tolerate its existence. You can't debate it. You can't invalidate it and let it exist. Its merits exceed your own, and therefore it must be banned because it could replace you. And so banning things actually shows how powerful they are. Anytime if something is banned, oh man, that's like I'm most interested in things that are banned. Dangerous things. I want to know what's in there, What is so dangerous? And danger's like my middle name. So that's why I'm so interested in danger. It's in my blood.
But it's not like Twitter's operates in China. It doesn't. It was banned in China. So, and certainly I've received no communication whatsoever from the Chinese government with regard to Twitter.
Okay. In terms of advertising, obviously Twitter's not a private company anymore, so we don't really know how it's all going. Have all the advertisers come back?
Not all, but most.
And
you can see it for yourself on Twitter, even in the For You feed.
Right.
I mean, follow.
In the following
Actually,
feed.
don't use For You because it sucks.
Right.
Filled with hate speech, I'm told.
That's not what I said.
Okay, fine. Well, why don't you use For You? What's wrong with it?
How is it going? Is Twitter in profit now?
No, Twitter is rough. I'd say we're roughly break even at this point.
And I think you've said before you see a world where you could be in profit. Is there a timeline on that, do you think? I mean,
depending on how things go, if current trends continue, I think we could be profitable, or, I mean, I'd say, to be more precise, we could be cash flow positive this quarter if things keep going well.
This quarter, as soon as that?
Possibly, yeah.
Wow. And do you have a message for the advertisers? I mean, can you say which advertisers haven't come back?
I think almost all of them have either come back or said they're going to come back. There are very few exceptions.
Can you say any of the exceptions?
I actually don't know of anyone who said definitively they're not coming back. They're all sort of trending towards coming back.
But there are some that just haven't.
Jump in, the water's warm. It's great.
That's your message to the advertisers. They haven't come back.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Disney feels comfortable advertising, children's movies, and Apple feels comfortable advertising iPhones, those are good indicators that Twitter is a good place to advertise.
I want to talk about if you have any regrets. And I think you were booed at a Dave Chappelle concert. I think your own lawyer said a little. Well, some say a little, some say a bit more. I think your own lawyer said you couldn't get a fair trial in San Francisco because there are lots of people that don't necessarily like you here.
Yeah, but I have to say I was wrong. He was wrong, I guess, because I was acquitted by the San Francisco jury unanimously. So, yeah.
But I guess.
But look,
do you have any regrets buying Twitter?
I think it was something that needed to be done.
I mean, you said
it's quite difficult, I'd say that the pain level of Twitter has been extremely high. This hasn't been some sort of party, so it's been really quite a stressful situation, for the last several months. Not an easy one. But apart from the pain, I mean, so it's been quite painful. But I think at the end of the day, it should have been done. I think. Were there many mistakes made along the way? Of course, but all's well that ends well, and so I feel like we're headed to a good place. roughly break even. I think we're trending towards being cash flow positive very soon, like literally in a matter of months. The advertisers are returning. I think the quality of recommended tweets has improved significantly, and we've taken a lot of feedback from people that have looked at the open source recommendation algorithm, and we've made a lot of improvements even since that was made open source, and we're going to keep doing that. So overall, I think the trend is very good. So, you know.
I mean, it was actually something I was going to ask you. You mentioned the pain, but you actually tweeted, I think in February, you said the last 3 months have been extremely tough. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. Are you talking emotionally there? I mean,
Yeah.
Can you explain?
I wasn't stabbed or anything.
Right.
Like
But
some people around here, it's just dangerous neck of the woods we're in.
it is, or it can be. But can you just talk me through the emotional strain of this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been under constant attack. I mean, it's not like I, have a stone cold heart or something like that. If you're under constant criticism and attack, and then that gets fed to you nonstop, including through Twitter, it's rough, Now, at the end of the day, I kind of think that, like, if you do lose your feedback loop, that's actually not good. So I think it is actually important to get negative feedback. I don't turn replies off, and I actually I removed my entire block list, so I don't block anyone either. So somebody can, so I get like a lot of negative feedback. But I think it's actually good to get negative feedback.
Right. When you talk about the emotional strain, you've gone.
So as far as discussing the revenue decrease, advertisers are afraid without perfectly curated content, some inappropriate content might be shown before one of their advertisements. So on its face it sounds bad, but it's disingenuously framed, because as a people we're looking for true information. We're not looking for sterilized information. So ad revenue is concerned with how controlled the ecosystem is, so that they can be certain that their ad's going to be shown with some foofy content that has no meat or real information or debate or opinion, but it means that we lose access to the ability to have discourse. So I mean, this is part of the move toward paying for the blue check mark. You are no longer the product if you have to pay, and now you're not at the mercy of the will of the advertisers and the billionaires. For a mere $7 a month or whatever it is, you now have true, free ability to communicate with your fellow human beings. If that's not worth $7 a month, I don't know what is, because I know people out there that are paying that for a coffee per day.
Back to feedback. Is that the thing that's been most difficult to take, the sort of negative feedback?
Yeah, I mean, if the media is writing non-stop stories about why you're a horrible person, I mean, it's hurtful, obviously.
I'm interested. I've written down a lot of these questions, but I haven't written this one down. But it's interesting. It feels like you have quite a kind of interesting relationship with the media, because in some ways you're quite skeptical, quite critical, certainly of established media, but also you kind of get hurt by what the media writes, and you seem to. You do get your news still from the BBC, as you've already said.
I literally follow the BBC on Twitter.
So do you feel you have a kind of odd relationship with the media?
Yes.
Go on, explain.
No, it is somewhat of a love-hate relationship, although, I mean, it might be tilted a bit more towards the hate. But I think this is sort of part and parcel of having a free media.
So for someone in his position to actually find himself wounded or hurt by criticism means that he is not a sociopath who thinks that he's above everyone else. The only way for someone to be able to hear criticism and not give a shit is if you have so little respect for your fellow humans that you have zero respect for the things that they say, and therefore their criticism is meaningless to you. So elitists and people that think that they're better, narcissists specifically, that would be the type of person that could read open criticism that's even valid and be like, don't care, doesn't bother me in the least, and then go over and just, murder someone where they stand, because they just don't care. They don't even humanity doesn't even register with them. They're like a Dexter.
Situation, which is that I do take heart in that the media is actually able to trash me on a regular basis in the United States and the UK and whatnot, whereas in a lot of other places the media cannot say mean things to powerful people.
Okay.
But I think it's better that we have a situation where the media can say mean things to powerful people.
If we're talking about the media, let's talk about verification labels. You obviously want to create another revenue stream that's subscription-based. Is verification the way to do that? Because we have a kind of a situation at the moment where the New York Times doesn't have a verified badge, whereas anyone else who can pay whatever few bucks a month can. Can that be right? Is that what you envisaged when you bought Twitter?
I must confess to some delight in removing the verified badge from the New York Times. That was great. Anyway, they're still alive and well, so they're doing fine.
But on a serious note, it could flame disinformation again if you have verified accounts that are from anyone who can pay money.
The New York Times wants money for you to read their bullshit, but then they'll openly criticize X for having a subscription model, and I don't think it's any less dangerous to only allow people with power into a verified status. Like, just because you have some sort of networking ability with other people, your thoughts are suddenly worthwhile. There's a lot of dumb people that are very successful, and some people are just lucky.
Simply, they go up to potentially the top of feeds. They get more action on Twitter, and traditional media that may not pay for verification doesn't. Do you see how that could potentially be a driver of misinformation?
Well, I mean, I think the media is a driver of misinformation much more than the media would like to admit that they are.
I mean, that's a different question.
No, it's not. No.
But you are sort of saying like who knows best, the average citizen or someone who is a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a lot of cases it is the average citizen that knows more than the journalist. In fact, I mean, very often when I see an article about something that I know a lot about, and I read the article, and it's like they get a lot wrong. Sort of the best interpretation is it's someone who doesn't really understand what's going on in industry, has only a few facts to play with, has to come up with an article. It's going to be, it's not going to hit the bullseye. So then, like, generally, this is how I explain this to other people. If you read an article about something you know about, how accurate is that article? Now, imagine that is how essentially all articles are. They're an approximation of what's going on, but not an exact situation. So if somebody is actually, let's say, in the fray, or like an expert in the field, and was actually there, and writes about their experience of being actually there, I think that actually that's in a lot of cases going to be better than a journalist, because the journalist wasn't there.
I think you said the legacy verified blue ticks are going to go next week. There have been a few deadlines on this.
420.
Oh,
yeah,
420.
I see the
69, 420.
That number will never leave me.
Clearly. It cost you a lot of money.
Well, fortunately, it didn't in the trial.
Well, yeah, right, for the SEC, right?
Yes, we're going to ask for a refund.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good luck. Let's move on from that. But blue ticks, in theory, all legacy blue ticks gone next week, and at that point you'll kind of work out whether this is going to sink or swim.
Yes.
What's your hunch? I mean, you've obviously.
I think it's going to swim.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll swim just fine.
Okay. What are you looking for in terms of a revenue stream on that? What are your goals?
Well, I don't know if it's like necessarily a giant revenue stream. Because even if you have sort of 1 million people that are subscribed for, let's say, $100 a year ish, that's $100 million. And that's a fairly small revenue stream relative to advertising. But what we're really trying to do here with verification is to massively raise the cost of disinformation and bots in general. So my prediction is that any social media company that does not insist on paid verification will simply be overwhelmed by advanced AI bots. I mean, ChatGPT is essentially a zillion instances of ChatGPT. How would you even know?
Is that really what you want on the platform? Do you want big news organizations being overwhelmed by bots so that they have to pay you some money?
No, the point is that you won't be.
If you pay. But a lot of organizations have already said they're not going to pay, like the New York Times.
Well, then, that's up to them if they, can make them pay. It's a small amount of money, so I don't know what their problem is.
Suddenly they have
We're going to treat
principles.
everyone equally. So what we're not going to do is say that there's some anointed class of journalists who are the special ones who get to tell everyone what they should think. That it should be up to the people what they think. And even if an article is completely accurate and comprehensive and everything, there's still in writing that article, the media is choosing the narrative. They're deciding what to write an article about. So I'm hopeful that this can be more a case of the public choosing the narrative as opposed to the media choosing the narrative. But the media can choose the narrative, at least a combination of the media and the public choosing the narrative. And the public getting to weigh in on stories if they think that they should add something to it or we got something wrong. And over time, I think if Twitter is the best source of truth, it will succeed. And if we are not the best source of truth, we will fail.
Someone comes in and offers you $44 billion for Twitter right now. Would you take it?
No.
Would you consider it?
No.
Why?
I take it back. It depends on who. I suppose if I was confident that they would pursue, they would rigorously pursue the truth, then I guess I would be glad to hand it off to someone else. I don't care about the money really, but I do want to have some source of truth that I can count on, and I hope that's our aspiration with Twitter, is to have a source of truth that you can count on. It's also real time. It's an immediate source of truth that you can count on, and that gets more accurate with time as people comment on a particular thing.
Well, if you don't care about the money, you could just give it to someone that you think is a good person to run Twitter.
Who do you think that might be?
I'm not the
Okay.
boss of Twitter.
No, but you might still have an idea.
Who could run Twitter?
Yes.
Honestly, I have no idea who could run Twitter.
Yeah, it's a hard job.
Okay, let's move on to. You've said that you were going to stand down as
I already have.
chief executive, right? Okay.
I keep telling you, I'm not the CEO of Twitter. My dog is the CEO of Twitter.
Okay. Have you got any?
He's a great dog.
Other than the
He's
dog.
very alert, and it's hard to get anything by him.
Okay, that's good to know. Other
Yeah.
than the dog, have you got any successes
Look,
in mind?
he's got a tail turtleneck. I mean, what more do you need?
Okay. All right. We're going down that route. Steve Jobs or Elizabeth Holmes are you making reference to?
I guess more Elizabeth Holmes.
Okay.
He's got a husky voice and a black turtleneck. Problem solved.
What were we talking about there?
I don't know.
Yeah. Who would you want? Have you got a successor in mind?
Not yet. Hopefully at some point.
Right. So, because you did say you were going to stand down.
Well, I did stand down.
Okay. All right, let's move on from that then. All right. What about this office? I'm intrigued about this office. You said it was expensive.
You don't really need a CEO.
Yeah?
Yeah. Why can't we be an innocuous syndicalist commune?
I think Jack Dorsey kind of recommended doing that, and you kind of ignored it.
Yeah, it was kind of that, actually.
This office, are you thinking about moving out of San Francisco?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, I mean, this place is nice, and we I kind of like this office building, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not, because I know you've talked about there's been high levels of crime here. You actually said at one point.
I think we should do something about the crime.
Right.
People are dying.
Right.
We should take action.
You've also talked about how potentially, I think you might have been joking, but you could turn this into a homeless shelter. So I guess the reason I'm asking is, you've
If we tried to turn it into a homeless shelter, and the building management, the building owner rejected it.
You tried to.
Yeah, they won't let us.
Which bits have you tried to turn into a homeless shelter?
We're only using one of the buildings, and so the other building could be a homeless shelter.
And you've tried to.
Yeah, we would like to do it right now.
Really?
Yes.
And
no,
you're being stopped by who?
By the building owner.
They won't let you?
No. In fact, they wouldn't even let us take the W off the sign.
So how were you going to do that?
They're really quite
What was your plan for the shelter?
I don't know. We could just let people stay there. It's nice.
Right. Okay. I didn't know that.
They can bring their stuff, bring the tent, whatever.
Right. And it's a roof over their head.
Yeah. If the building owner lets us, we'll do it.
Yeah. So if the building owner lets you, you would happily do that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. There we go.
Oh man, you could have the homeless people running Twitter, Free rent, you just hang out, help, keep the lights on or whatever. I don't know what they do at Twitter. I guess if you're not moderating content, you can let a lot of people go because you're not trying to put a stranglehold on what gets out. Not only that, AI is about to wipe a lot of jobs. It's already in process, but we're just getting started.
We go. What's the most difficult thing you've had to do? What's the hardest thing you've had to do?
In my whole life?
In the last 6 months. We're talking about the last 6 months as you as Twitter boss here, Twitter owner.
Well, shutting down one of our service centers was quite difficult because it turns out there were. I thought the service centers were redundant, but there were in fact a lot of things that were hard coded to this one service center, and so when we shut it down, we actually it was quite catastrophic. We lost a lot of functionality, which sort of really rushed to put it back.
When was that?
And that was around late December, early January.
So that was the biggest sort of. I'm worried here.
Biggest crisis, yeah.
Yeah. And what about hard in terms of emotional? I mean, just letting go. I mean, what were the levels of staff, and what are they now?
I think we're around 1,500 people at this point, and there was, I think, 7,800.
What was that? Sorry?
I think it was around just under 8,000.
8,000.
Wow. That is making things efficient. So you've got a sixth of the people, and everything's still running and potentially getting better.
1,500 right now.
Okay.
Wow.
And has it been hard letting that many people go?
Yeah. Not fun at all. It's painful.
I mean, I guess in what way do you feel like you need to speak to people when they leave, or?
I mean, it's not physically possible to speak to that many people.
Has that? I mean, you talked about that being the most technical bit. Has that been sort of the hardest thing emotionally, or is it?
It's one of the hardest things, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. The Nancy Pelosi tweet.
Leave it alone.
To the start.
Jesus.
But that is an example of a few, and there have been others. Do you feel like you're an impulsive person?
I mean, have I shot myself in the foot with tweets multiple times? Yes.
Do you feel like...
I need bulletproof shoes at this point.
You've definitely done that. The issue is that you're now a Twitter owner. Do you feel like you should be look at your tweets more? You have a higher responsibility when you tweet something out for it to be accurate?
I think I should not tweet after 3 a.m.
That's the rule.
Yeah, well, maybe 2 a.m.
That's the new rule.
Him and Trump. No one, just stay off Twitter. You know, after like 1, 2 in the morning, just no more Twitter. You know.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so there's a blanket ban.
I shouldn't.
What are your Twitter rules? I mean, I've had some people say never tweet when you've been drinking, or never tweet when angry. What are your Twitter rules?
Well, I think those are 2 good rules. Yeah, don't tweet if you're wasted, or really upset about something. Yeah, probably. I mean, a good friend of mine actually had a good suggestion, and it has helped, which is that if you're going to tweet something that maybe is controversial, save it as a draft and look at it the next day and see if you still want to tweet it. And that has been a good rule of thumb.
Okay.
So I've got a bunch of things in my draft folder that I'm glad I didn't send.
I can't remember whether I've asked you this. This is my sort of wrapping up at this point. But yeah, do you have any regrets?
I mean, one can always, like, hindsight's 20/20. So that, a bunch of decisions that could have been made better for sure. But as I said, all's well that ends well, and things are going pretty well. So in the grand scheme of things, I can't complain.
Okay. I'm going to just check my list of things to make sure I've actually asked.
I mean, it's maybe this
everything.
something that people on the Twitter want to say. Ask, we could ask them.
That's on you. That's on you.
There's 680,000 people listening.
There you go.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Let's see. How do we see? Okay. Let me see who. I'll just look at my tweet and see what people are saying or what questions they have. Do you like the BBC? Do you like BBC?
Okay, yeah, we're not going to do that.
Oh, I can't interview you?
Obviously, I work for the BBC.
But do you like BBC?
I know.
I see what you're doing. I'm not going to respond to that. I think we can finish the interview there. If you want to continue, thank you very much.
Well,
Elon, for
come
doing
on.
this. I really appreciate it.
Sure you like BBC. Come on.
I'm not engaging. All right. Elon, it honestly has been a pleasure.
Okay.
It's such a joy to be thoughtful and be confident in your thoughts and the things that you believe, because it is liberating. It allows you to be free and have fun with things. You're not trying to hide anything. A lot of people spend a lot of time cultivating this public personality, which is not who they really are. They're afraid to show who they really are to the world because they're not even comfortable with it. They're not even sure of it. So it's easier to create this 1 or 2-dimensional thing that you present to the world. It's much harder to be genuine and be confident about who you are and what you believe, and believe that you've spent enough time thinking about it and being challenged by those around you to have well-formed thoughts, opinions, and ideals with which you live your life by. If you are able to do that, you no longer have to be duplicitous and disingenuous to the world, and you get to the point where you have this level of comfort where you can sit on something that thousands of people are watching, joke around, be laid back, because you don't have a worry that you're gonna not have you're gonna run out of things to say, or not be sure of, oh, should I say this or that, should I not, you've spent the time alone exploring and learning about yourself, so that then when you are in public around other people, you're not trying to figure yourself out as you interact with others. You know who you are and what you believe in. And I see that. I see his comfort, and I think that anyone who's not envious of that doesn't understand what it is.
Talking to you, it really has. And if you want to carry on answering questions on this, then go for it. But I'm not going to.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to see if there's any good. There's a lot of comments here.
I can imagine.
There's so many. Anyway, it's nice to be interviewed by the BBC. I have a lot of respect for the British Broadcasting Corporation.
When did you say when the actual label's going to go public?
Oh, is it? Do we still say state media or whatever? Oh, it says government-funded media currently, as opposed to publicly funded media. Well, I guess probably we can make that change tomorrow if you like.
It's up to you. I'm a journalist. It's up to you. But
I mean,
we'll expect that tomorrow.
I mean, do you have any requests on a personal level, or you can't speak on a personal level?
No, I don't.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we've established that. Go on, what questions are people asking you? Go on.
I mean, there's like a lot of comments. Let's see. I was literally reading on looking at replies to the fact that the spaces.
Are there any good questions that I've missed out in the last 6 months? I'm sure there are many.
I mean, people generally seem to like this interview, as far as I can tell. Very few negative comments, so generally positive.
Is that that's probably bad for me.
I'm scrolling as fast as I can to sort of see. I guess there's some complaints about Twitter Spaces needing some improvement. Let's fix Twitter Spaces is one of the comments. People like the fact that my dog Floki is the CEO. And I'm really just scrolling as fast as I can here.
I guess my reflection on this interview.
I'd just like to say I like BBC. I do find it funny.
I think, I mean, honestly,
Oh man,
listening to the interview, the answer about
so funny. I don't think for me, I love the element of childlike stupidity. I think it's hilarious, and it's something that I recognize a kindred spirit as far as, I still love Beavis and Butthead. Get the hell out of the cockpit. He said, now!
misinformation and saying, oh, we don't police misinformation in the same way, but
we do
because we try and get bots, because we try and take down bots, we'll be effective at bots. There's actually less misinformation on the platform.
I think that's a big factor.
I'd like to ask you one more question on that, because that is quite a lot of people I think will be listening to this and thinking, really, you're arguing you can police content moderation far less and end up with less misinformation.
First of all, we do have people working on contract.
God, I'm so sick of misinformation, content moderators, fact checkers, hate speech, misogyny, conspiracy. These are words. It's like the media has a real limited vocabulary, and they're all reinforcing the same words, and they're encouraging others. Man, I heard this word 10 times today. I'm gonna start saying it. And it's, the internet at one time had no police, and we survived. It requires you to use your brain and try and turn on your bullshit meter. I mean, this is what you have to do in real life. There's no speech police in real life. There's no content police when you're on the street and people are talking. When you're in a restaurant, you overhear a conversation. There's never been a mechanism like this where we're protected by people who lie and people who say the wrong thing, whether it's intentional and malicious or whether it's accidental because they're not informed. So it's just that you want to talk about fake news. You want to talk about, misinformation. The biggest misinformation is saying the word misinformation on the internet like it's a serious thing. Like human beings are not equipped to try and figure out what is real and what isn't. All you have to do is do a quick Google search. And they act like we're helpless. They act like we're 3. Because they want to take your rights away from you. They want to take your autonomy away from you. They want to make you believe you're so fucking dumb that you need their help, you need their supervision. And wake up. You don't need it, and it's harming you. It's removing your own ability to function because you're putting training wheels back on your bicycle. So you ride over one fucking pothole, and then you're sitting on the fucking training wheels, and your back tire's spinning in the hole, and you look like an idiot.
Content moderation. It's not like we don't. So
I've spoken to lots of people who've been fired. So lots
And
of
AI is a thing.
yeah,
It exists.
The censorship bureau was let go. I don't think people, the sort of putting a thumb on the political scales on the far left has been let go, because that's not right. That's not what you want for a public square. You've got to have equal treatment for people from
Yes.
across the political spectrum.
Equal.
So, some of them are going to be upset about that.
And I want people with left views and right views to be treated equally. I'm a moderate. I don't want either side to be silenced. I want debate to handle it. Because right and wrong is something that people understand. The only way you can corrupt it is if you don't let people speak so that people can understand the positions. When you're just speculating about why this person believes that, then you allow for bullshit propaganda to be put in place of real people's opinions and speech. You shut the fucking real people up, and then you have curated content put in its place, and then everybody's online wondering, what's happened to my country? What's happened to people? Why are they so fucking crazy? Why are they saying such nonsense that doesn't make any sense to me? Are these real humans? Are they real humans? We don't know, because you're on the internet, and there's no faces behind the text. So we don't know who's behind it. You could have one pool of money paying for all this stuff to go out, and you would never know. You'd take it at face value and believe that it's legitimate when it's complete bullshit. And misinformation.
But like I said, my experience is that there's less misinformation these days, not more, and that the community notes feature is extremely powerful for addressing.
Sorry, I know I'm talking a lot, but there's definitely less misinformation as information becomes more readily available. As our internet speeds increase, and Google continues to be available. Now you have ChatGPT in addition to Google. If you want to verify information on the spot, that is easily accessible to you. If you got thumbs or just a voice, you can search in seconds. You can know the truth. You don't need some third party controlling what you have access to.
So-called misinformation.
I mean, you've had community notes placed on your own tweets.
Yes.
One of them involving an alleged diamond mine.
Diamond mine?
A mine that.
What diamond mine?
A mine that your father part owned.
Yeah, my father never owned a So you're thinking of an emerald mine?
Emerald mine.
Yeah, I'd like to see a picture of this alleged emerald mine.
Because you've been community noted on that tweet.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No, but he never owned a emerald mine. This is total bullshit.
Not even a 50% stake.
No.
Because in community notes.
But first of all, okay. Do you think emerald? Do you think something like an emerald mine would have like some sort of property register? There'd be like a picture of it. It's not like you can say, "Oh, that's my mine." These things are hotly debated. If you've got something valuable, you have to have some property record, like a house. But much more important than a house. And yet there is no property record whatsoever. There is no picture of this mine whatsoever. It doesn't exist. It's fake.
So it's a really good example then, because there is a community note on that tweet that says, you said this thing on the X day, blah, blah, blah. So in that instance, the community notes didn't work. So you're saying that that's a way of solving misinformation, but you're literally saying one of those community notes is wrong.
In the community note may be referring to a thing where I went on a trip with my father to Zambia, but I never saw any mine or anything. So there's no mine.
I'm not right, but at this point I'm just saying the community note says it is. So you're saying it's this great panacea, but yeah, it's literally on your own tweet, the community notes, according to you, are wrong.
If they're referencing an article, then the article may not be wrong. but they still represent. Yeah,
Is that what you think?
community notes is not going to be
Okay.
perfect, but it's the batting average of community notes I found to be extremely high.
Right.
So
So community notes plus getting rid of millions and millions of bots every day, I guess. That's what we're talking about.
yeah,
That's what you think is tackling misinformation over content moderation. And I think that's the bit that a lot of people will go really.
really, yes, really. Look, the acid test is people use the system and find it to be a good source of truth, or they don't. And no system is going to be perfect in its pursuit of the truth. But I think we can be the best, the least inaccurate. That's our goal, the least inaccurate. And I think I think we might be there already. If we're not there, we'll be there soon.
Do you have? I've spoken to people who think this. Do you have a kind of message for people who think that Twitter has been ruined?
Well, we have all-time high usage, so I don't think it has been.
Some people think it has been. I'll tell you that.
Yes, well, they're probably the same people who predicted that Twitter would cease to exist, and their predictions have turned out to be false.
Often these acts of censorship.
Well, just absolutely beautiful. And again, I want to reiterate, if we're going to have the conversation about banning speech, then let's have it. And I don't think that the speech that they want to ban should be banned. I think that what should be banned is all these buzzwords that have been bastardized to the point where they're just used, for anything. I mean, hate speech, that's meaningless. Like, if you use any word, fuck is a good example of this. If you use any word too much, it loses its meaning completely. Hate speech loses its meaning. Misinformation. What the hell is that? When you describe everything as misinformation, then nothing is misinformation at the same time that everything is. It's disingenuous. They're being disingenuous. They want to ban speech to make it easier for their agenda. They don't want to be challenged. And I want to ban their buzzwords so that they can't rely on these crutches because they don't actually have well-formed actual thoughts and ideals. It's just weapons that they want to club you with to get you to shut up and stop talking. We don't want to debate you. We just want you to shut up and go away. That's not what America is founded on. That's not why Elon Musk bought Twitter for $40 billion. That's not why George Washington crossed the Delaware in the middle of winter. That's not why people fought and died in the Civil War and World War II to defend the ideas of this country that for the longest time have been a beacon of light in the world and have been something to be emulated. And I pray that we can turn the ship around. There's enough people who are going to stand up, let their voice be heard, and not just continue to go along with this and say, it's not that big a deal if we go along with it. It's not that big a deal. We don't need to stand up and say that's wrong. It's okay. I'm too lazy. Just let it happen. They'll tire themselves out. They're not going to tire themselves out. They're not going to cry themselves to sleep. We need to address it. We need to go in and change their diaper. We need to go in and check the crib. I mean, you can't just ignore it. We've tried that. And ignoring it, look at where it's gotten in the past 5 years or less. Things have gotten much worse for a moderate in America who just wants to have the American dream, which is dead, go about their daily life without being harassed for just being a regular person, and just generally be able to have a decent relationship with other Americans. They are continuing to incite violence, American on American, and they sit in their little Oval Office and Capitol Hill, and God forbid anybody shows up, you're a criminal. We pay for the buildings. We pay your salaries. We're your boss. And you're fucking forgetting a lot of that shit. And we need to get them out of office at the minimum. We need to remove money from politics and the election system at minimum. We need to get politicians in that believe in America, because we have subversive agents. I mean, look at some C-SPAN stuff of American representatives talking shit about America. That's not who you want in charge of the country. Americans that hate America should not be dictating our future, because they're going to run into the ground because they hate America. They hate what it stands for. It's terrible. It's evil. It needs to be done away with, and we need to adopt some sort of socialist idea that's never worked, ever. The only socialist economies that the only no economies, the only socialist governments that work are heavily tied to the capitalist economic system. Even in our current system, we have a lot of socialist programs like Social Security, welfare. The fire department and the police department are social programs. Anyway, I'm done. You've had enough, I'm sure. I hope you guys have a great evening, afternoon, morning, whatever time it is when you're watching this. I fucking love you to death. I am gonna talk your ear off if you're willing to come back. And I look forward to our continued engagement. Have a great day. I'm not suicidal. I would never kill myself.